of worship and flattery or imitation, maybe. Don't we try to be like what we value? Any thoughts, any examples?
Don't we try to be like what we value? Example.
I think we do. Like fans will dress like their heroes. They will act like or copy singers or whatever.
People will even go so far as to have plastic surgery in order to look like their idol.
I guess there's some that have done that.
Yes, there is.
Yeah, yeah. Michael?
By beholding, we become changed.
Right.
Doesn't that fit there?
It absolutely fits. Yeah. I think I have that verse further down here. One person said, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery that mediocrity can pay to greatness. Okay. It's like we're trying to lift ourselves up to be like the one imitator, worship. So imitation can be the highest form of flattery because it shows that you have not only taken the time to observe someone else or their work, but also that you like it enough to want to change yourself, your appearance maybe even, to be more like them. Okay, and like Lorna said, people have gone to drastic measures. There's people that are trying to look like the devil, if you can believe it. Oh yeah, you know, the way they do up their faces. I've heard of things like split tongues, all kinds of things. You know, little horn implants, and people go real crazy. Yeah. It has been said that the sum of true religion is to imitate the God whom we worship. Okay, and that's why Paul wrote, let's read Ephesians 5:1. Ephesians 5:1. Okay, Judy has it.
Therefore, be followers of God as dear children.
Okay. The English Standard Bible says, therefore be imitators of God.
Yeah, my version says.
Okay, good. As beloved children. Okay, act like your daddy.
I guess a lot of children try to imitate their parents.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting that I guess this is the word for the followers in the King James, is the Greek is mimetes, something like that. And it's, anyway, the way it's spelled, you can see the similarity to our word mimicry, which is interesting. I didn't follow the etymology of that word mimicry, but I think it may come from that word. There's actually lots of verses telling us to be like God, to act like him. Okay, we'll look at some of them here. Matthew 5:48. And you can't see this, Lorna, but I've got them on the screen, and I've done all of the part we're supposed to do in one color, and then what we're aiming to look like what God is like in another color. Matthew 5:48.
Therefore, you shall be perfect, just as your Father in heaven is perfect.
Okay, that's talking about imitating him, isn't it? Yeah. Luke 6:35.
I turned right to it, so I'll read
Okay,
it.
go ahead.
But love your enemies, do good and lend, hoping for nothing in return, and your reward will be great, and you will be sons of the highest, for he is kind to the unthankful and evil.
Okay, so it's telling us to love your enemies, because that's being like God, who is kind to the unthankful and to the evil.
Mm-hmm.
And then Luke 6:26, I'll just read this one. Be ye therefore merciful, as your Father also is merciful. That, I believe, is actually a parallel verse to Matthew 5:48.
And it's not Luke 6:26.
Oh. Okay, anyways, quoting the verse wherever it's from. It's the parallel one. And the point of that is,
Oh, 36.
okay, 636. The point then is that where it says in Matthew 5:48, be therefore perfect. A lot of people get scared of that, but it's really talking about being merciful in the parallel version of it. Ephesians 4:32. Huey?
And be you kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, and even as God, for Christ's sake, has forgiven you.
Okay, so forgive one another as God has forgiven you. That's, we can call that imitation, doing as he does.
Mhm.
1 Peter 1:15. Oh, Michael?
Can't see my hand.
Yeah, I couldn't see your hand there.
It's a smaller screen, so you can't see my hand.
Right.
But as he which has called you is holy, so be you holy in all manner of behavior,
Okay. All manner of
conversation.
It says in the King James. Behaviors, it sounds like a broader term even. So
Conduct. It says in there.
conduct is good too. Okay. So act like God, basically.
Mhm.
1 John 4:11 says, beloved, if God so loved us, we ought also to love one another. So again, copy him. Okay, if someone could read 1 John 3:2, this is a good one. 1 John 3:2. Okay, Lana?
Beloved, now we are children of God, and it has not yet been revealed what we shall be. But we know that when he is revealed, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is.
Okay, so all the verses we read before tell us to copy God, basically, imitate him, act like him. But this verse is telling us, it's a promise really, that by the time of the second coming, by the time Yeshua appears, we shall be like him. So that tells us that in the last days, there needs to be a special move, I guess, effort on the part of God's people to imitate him. Okay, and let's read 2 Corinthians 3:18. I think this is the verse that Michael mentioned before.
But we all with open face, beholding as in a glass the glory of the Lord, are changed. Oh no, that's a different one, isn't it? Where are we? We shall be. I'm looking at the wrong one. Sorry. We all with open face, beholding as in a glass the glory of the Lord, are changed into the same image from glory to glory, even as by the Spirit of the Lord.
Okay, good.
Excuse
So
me.
that Michael's got to answer the phone there. So
All right, who's this?
that tells us again that there's
Hello.
a change, but it also says something about
Hi.
how that change is brought about.
Who's speaking?
Can anyone see that?
Sorry, man. I'm on,
Beholding.
I'm on a,
By beholding,
Zoom.
okay, by beholding what?
Can I call you back?
The glory of the Lord.
Okay, by beholding the
Yeah.
glory or the character of the Lord, we are changed into the same glory, same character, same image. Okay, so that's telling us that what we're looking at, what we're ascribing value to, rubs off on us. Again, it's saying that. Okay, so if we're looking at something and it's of value to us, we're more likely to copy or imitate it. So worship will change you, and it'll change you from the inside out. Worship really is focused attention, we could say. Okay, and I've got here two sentences. Today we are here to worship God, and God alone is worthy of worship is the other one. So both use the word God, but one has God as a subject and the other has us as a subject, right? And it's really the focusing on God that causes our heart to turn to him, okay? So we need to be thinking of him, focusing on him. And in connection with that, what is the difference between saying God is so amazing and saying you are so amazing? The you, of course, being directed towards God.
Well, I think when you say,
What do you mean, what is the difference?
yeah, I think when you say God is so amazing, that's kind of, it's not as personal, but if you say you are so amazing and you're talking to God, that indicates a personal conversation.
Okay, that is the difference. It's directed at God. Okay, it's an acknowledgement of him more directly.
So if you sing a hymn that talks about how amazing God is, it's not as maybe effective as a song which says you are amazing God. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not the,
It's not that they're bad.
yeah, it's not
Those
the
are
bad.
different.
No, yeah, it's more direct. Really. Let's read Matthew 8:2.
You got it.
Okay.
And behold, a leper came and worshipped him, saying, Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean.
Okay. So he worshiped him. What were his thoughts? What were the leper's thoughts as he did that?
He's able to make me clean.
Okay. So he acknowledged his ability, which we could relate that to worth. I mean, if I had a choice between two doctors and one basically didn't know what he was doing and the other had a positive cure, that doctor is worth more to me. Okay.
So what was the worshiping? Like he came and worshiped him. Was it in the words that he said? Saying, Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean. Was that the worshiping?
Well, I can imagine that he bowed at his feet too.
Probably.
Now, is that worshiping? Well, yes, that's the outward expression of it. But the real worshiping happens in the leper's head. He recognizes this is someone special. To what degree he recognized who he was, we're not sure, but he had heard that he could cure people, cure even lepers perhaps. So that's of worth, of value to him. So he acknowledged his worthiness, his worth, maybe for selfish reasons, but so many verses talk about worshiping and they'll say to fall down on your face even. What is that doing? What's the equivalent of that we do? I mean, maybe we do that. I don't generally go around falling on my face, but
what's the equivalent of that we do?
yeah.
I don't get what you mean.
They're lowering themselves in
Mm.
relation to, posturally in relation to God.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I could think of if you went to visit the Queen of England, you would likely bow or curtsy. That is, you're humbling yourself in their sight in a way. You're acknowledging that they're more important than you. This is just if you happen to go visit the Queen.
Yeah. So
although I did talk to Prince Philip once and I didn't bow down or curtsy to him. So
okay, thumbs up from here then. So to fall down, you could fall down in your mind. Okay, you could mentally acknowledge that, I'm like a leper or something compared to God. It's a matter of recognizing your worth, your value, your status in relation to God, perhaps. But here's something interesting. Remember, Yeshua washed
Mhm.
the disciples' feet.
Mhm.
You know, he girded himself with a towel, it says, and he took off his outer coat or whatever and bent down and washed their feet. Is there a sense in which God is the most humble being in the universe?
Well, if Jesus came to serve and he did that, that's humble, but you know, he served humanity
Okay.
all the time.
Yeah.
So he was humble all the time when he could have been the opposite of that.
Yeah.
With his position.
To be humble, you know, it can be outwardly displayed, of course, but it's in the mind as well. And when you're that awesome, I'll say, God of the universe, and you do things like washing dirty feet, that's being pretty humble because of the distance you have to bring yourself from way up to way down to do that. Anyway, just a question.
Yeah, Philippians 2 talks about Christ coming down, 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 and humbling himself.
Sure.
Even the death of the cross.
Yeah, have to have a pretty humble attitude to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Worship has the idea of paying attention to, okay? And it's interesting that God actually does that toward us far more than we do towards him. Okay, not that he's worshiping us, but he pays attention to us, and we should be doing that more to him, which would be worship on our part. And actually, he doesn't worship in the sense that he exalts us above him, but he does see great value in us, doesn't he? Tremendous value. That's why he loves us so much. Let's read Jeremiah 29:11. Somebody have Jeremiah 20?
I have that.
Okay, Michael.
For I know the thoughts that I think towards you, says the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end. Thoughts of peace.
Okay. So God has never, this is an interesting thought, God has never had an evil thought towards any one of us. Does that sound true? He might be disappointed in things we do, but he doesn't have evil thoughts towards us.
His love will never change.
His love never changes. No.
Some of the scriptures you read in the Old Testament, though, you might dispute that if you didn't know any better. And that's, you know, oh, I'm so mad at those Israelites, I'd like to wipe them off the face of the earth kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So where do you, yeah.
Exactly. So that on surface reading could be an evil thought, and that needs to be correctly understood. Huey.
I was just gonna add, maybe people get confused with discipline.
Okay.
And authority and discipline.
Yes.
So his thoughts aren't evil, but he sometimes has to discipline. Yeah.
Okay. If we have to discipline our children, the thought is not evil. The thought is, well, I sure hope this corrects the little guy, you know. It hurts to give a spanking, hurts me, but hopefully it'll benefit the child. Okay, let's look at a couple more verses here. Matthew 9:18. You have that, Lona?
Yes. While he spoke these things to them, behold, a ruler came and worshipped him, saying, my daughter has just died. Come and lay your hand on her, and she will live.
Okay, so he worshiped him, and it connects the action of worshiping him, we can imagine he bowed down on one knee at least or something. But it connects that with his daughter is dead, but you can do something about it. Okay.
You knew the right place to go.
You need the right place to go, or you need the right person to plead with to take some action, because he recognized that Yeshua had the ability to do that. Okay, and that was of value to him. Michael.
Oh, I see you've already got it there. I was led to 1433, but I see you've already got it.
Okay, go ahead and read it.
That helps a lot.
Yeah.
Then they that were in the ship came and worshipped him, saying, of a truth, thou art the Son of God. So that's why they're really worshipping him, because they know he is God's son, and was all power and authority was given to him.
Okay. Is this, I don't have the context here yet, but is this where he stopped the storm? Yes, yes. The wind ceased. Okay.
That's
They
when
saw
he walking on the water, you know.
Okay. And then the wind ceased when he got into the boat, I guess. So this showed that he had authority over the elements of nature even, which they connected that
Yes.
with his divine nature. Let's read Matthew 28:9.
I got it.
Okay.
And as they went to tell his disciples, behold, Jesus met them, saying, rejoice. And they came and held him by the feet and worshiped him.
Okay. So does holding someone by the feet equal worshiping?
No, of course not.
Okay. So what's the relation? It says and, so they did both.
They wanted to touch him.
Okay. They wanted to touch
They
him.
wanted to experience divinity.
Right. So again, we could say the holding by the feet. So they're obviously bent down to do that, right? That's the posture, but the worship him is what happens in the mind. Okay, they're both going together. But one is the expression of worship, and what's happens in the mind is, we could say, the essence of worship. It's really the more important part. So falling down is symbolic of humbling self because it elevates God by contrast. Now, I just want to, this thing about the dog that we talked about before, there's a little diagram, a happy looking dog, and it says, Lord, help me to be the person my dog thinks I am. Okay. And I say here, God gave us dogs to show us what converted people look like. Okay.
So true.
I go out on the porch and my dog pays attention to me right away. He thinks I'm of value. She thinks I'm of value. She gets up, wags her tail. It's getting a little slower these days, but that's what. So dogs are used in that word for worship. And the other thing is God gave us cats to show what unconverted people look like.
That's very independent.
So I've got a picture of a cat here, and it's actually got kind of a mean look on its face, and his tongue is sticking out. It's interesting, in Webster's dictionary, the different definition he has for worship, one of them is to show honor with extravagant love and extreme submission. Okay.
Submission.
Yeah, dogs, if it's your dog and you're feeding it and caring for it, it will submit to you. You're the leader of the pack, sort of thing. So
Cats, on the other hand.
yeah, there's a big difference between cats and dogs. And
Yeah.
an interesting thing when you think about it, I'm just going to type this on the board. if you look, I put me in the middle, the word me, then on either side of it, I put a dog on one side and God on the other. It's interesting that DOG is exactly the opposite of GOD, right? I think you could do a lot more investigating on that. At one time, I had a file of things I'd saved about dogs and their characters and how what they teach us about God, and somehow I lost it, which I'm always sorry that I lost that.
We should worship God the way the dog worships us.
Yeah, okay, good. Let's think for a moment about music in worship. So singing can be an expression of our attitude of worship, but is singing itself worship? Even singing hymns?
Depends on your attitude while you're singing.
Okay, depends on your attitude while you're singing. Lona, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I was just thinking, just singing for the sake of singing is not necessarily worshipful. You know how you'll get an earworm? You know what that is? When a tune is going around in your head, you can't put it out.
Yeah, okay.
That's not got anything to do with worship.
Even if it's words of a hymn.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay, good. So singing itself, even singing a hymn, is not necessarily worship. It's an expression of worship if you're worshiping, if you've got the right attitude in your head, basically, you could say. So if a pastor, a song leader, someone says, let's start our worship, let's have worship. What were you doing before that? Okay, we've already talked about that, but the worship is really what goes on in your head. The outward things are just outward things, not necessarily anything wrong with them, but singing is just an expression of an attitude that should be there.
But singing hymns can sometimes get you into the attitude of worship.
Yeah.
It can help
Okay.
you, to focus your mind on God and not on the other things that are flying through your head.
Yeah, okay, good.
So,
I kind of missed that. So music can create a focused venue for worship, but it's not worship in itself. And some songs, if it's one you really like or has especially significant words, really can put you in an attitude of worship,
mhm.
quite profoundly sometimes. A very beautiful song, we can appreciate the words and music and everything. Okay, let's look. I mentioned that the book of Revelation has 30% of the New Testament uses of worship or worship. Revelation 13 and 14, I didn't look at this in more detail, but it uses the word worship quite a bit. And we know that at the end of time, there will be kind of a dividing line based on worship, right? If you worship or conceive of God with characteristics of the beast, then in a sense, could you be worshiping the beast? What is the beast about? He's about forcing forms of worship, about controlling the conscience. If we say we're worshiping the God of heaven, but we conceive of him as doing that, then that's almost crossing the line into worshiping the beast. Does that make sense?
Can you give an example?
Well, if someone says, I worship God, the creator, and he loves me, but if I don't follow him, he's going to burn me in hell forever. He's going to force me to worship his way. Then you're worshiping a wrong God almost.
Wrong concept.
A wrong concept of God for sure.
Mm-hmm.
There's no force with God. He draws us.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. God's law is imposed, is natural, it's not imposed. He forgives us unconditionally. He is ever merciful. He will never coerce or force obedience to him. Okay, those are the right concepts, and there's many others we could list. But if we're worshiping a God and in our mind, his laws are imposed, he won't forgive unless I beg him to forgive me. At some point, he cuts off the opportunity to approach him. He coerces obedience. Then we've got him all wrong. So the mark of the beast will be received. I'm not going to go into detail, obviously, here. The mark of the beast will be received by those who worship the beast, right? The mark is Sunday, but what is the worship? That's just a question to think about it. The mark of the beast we associate with Sunday. The mark of the beast is received by those who worship the beast, but what is the worship? Isn't it worshiping his character as opposed to God's true character? Isn't it ascribing value to the character of the beast? If we worship the beast, we're saying the beast is in a condition or state of worth. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, is it possible, we kind of touched on this. This is just maybe for review. Is it possible to worship all the time? Is it possible to worship God all the time?
I think it's possible to be in an attitude of worship all the time, but you won't always be expressing it by bowing down and praising, and because you got to live your life.
Yeah.
I was saying during the break to Ray, even the monks in the monastery have to eat and sleep and do their laundry and other things. They can't be always praying and praising and worshiping.
Yeah. Okay. So
well, they can always be worshiping, but they can't always be.
We can always be in
expressing.
an attitude of worship, but there's a difference between the attitude and the expression of that attitude. And I think it's really helpful to understand the distinction there. So worship is something that happens between your ears. Okay, it's in your mind, in your brain. That's where it happens. But what if negative thoughts about God come in? Like something bad happens to you and you say, God, why did you do this to me? Why were you so mean to me? Isn't that a negative thought about God? At that moment, and maybe we've had those sorts of experiences, at that moment, are you worshiping him?
At that moment, you should submit yourself, therefore, to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you.
Okay.
That's what you should do right then if you get that negative thought. It's not God that's doing it, it's the devil that does that stuff. Good answer.
So at that moment, are you worshiping? Well, your concept of God's worth has certainly gone down if you're ascribing him doing terrible things to you. You might value him in other ways, like you might still acknowledge he created the whole world, but at this moment, he's being nasty to me. You're not giving him as great a level of worth in that case.
You might not frame it as, why did you do this to me? But you might say, why is this happening to me? Why did you allow this to happen to me?
Okay, almost the same thing.
Almost, but not quite. Almost.
Okay, so we can't worship all the time, especially not if worship means face to the ground. Okay, we have to live, we have to eat, and all those sorts of things. We haven't really used this word yet, but what's the difference between worship and praise?
Praising.
Praise could be an expression of worship.
Okay, I think so.
Maybe.
The pastor could say, okay, let's have praise time. Saying we're having praise for God. I mean, you could express that. Whether or not you believe it internally is another matter. The praise is the external, I think.
Right?
Yep.
I think we should begin each and every one of our prayers, when we are praying alone during our own private worship, or possibly at any time when we're praying, even with others. We should begin our prayers with praise to God. Okay,
good thought. There's actually a psalm, I'm going to guess Psalm 77:13, I might be wrong. It says something like, enter his gates or enter his courts with praise. And you can look at the sanctuary and go through it, and it's a very nice model of prayer, actually. That as you enter the sanctuary, you're entering through the gates, and it's good to enter with praise. Did I get that right?
No, that's a sanctuary one. Your way of God is in the sanctuary.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a verse that says something like that. Somewhere.
Enter is.
Read the whole Bible and you'll find it.
Yeah, there is.
So let's read the Luke 24:52. And the question here is true worship connected to our emotions?
True worship connected to our emotions.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be, I guess.
I have that verse.
Well,
Okay.
it depends on the emotion, doesn't it?
Yeah. Lonely, go ahead.
And they worshipped him and returned to Jerusalem with great joy.
Okay, so I heard a couple of answers. We should worship him in spite of our emotions, shouldn't we?
Mhm.
But when you worship him, this verse suggests that it can bring great joy.
Mhm.
And so if your emotions are negative, perhaps a good thing to do is to worship him, to acknowledge his worth, his greatness, his goodness. And that might just turn our emotions around towards joy. That would be good.
Psalm 100, verse 4, for that one about enter into his gates
Okay.
with thanksgiving, into his courts.
You want to read it?
Oh, enter into his gates with thanksgiving and into his courts with praise. Be thankful to him and bless his name.
Okay, Psalms 100 and verse 4.
Mhm.
Okay, I mentioned something else we would do that kind of covers our study on worship. I mentioned some awesome help for your immune system. So I just want to go through this. It's kind of a timely thing, I think. We want to have our immune systems working well. Psychology has made a connection between positive emotions and our immune system.
Mhm.
Our emotional state actually influences our immunity to a great degree. How much protection you have from an infection, the degree of inflammation in our body. There's many, many things that cause inflammation, and we all have some degree of that in our bodies. So there's lots of studies on the impact of emotions on physical health. Emotions in general, that is, but they most often just lump them together. And they also look sometimes at, you can look at positive emotions or negative ones, such as grief, sadness, shame, fear, anger. They all have similar effects in the negative direction. But positive emotions also are grouped together and cause a positive mood and boost our immune system. But the question is there a particular positive emotion that has a greater effect than others? And it turns out there is. And at the University of California in Berkeley, they did a study, and they can easily measure from a cheek swab, I think it is, something called interleukin 6. And that is an important marker for inflammation, and it's influenced by our immune system. So the more interleukin 6 you have, hopefully I don't have that backwards. Anyway, there's a direct relation between interleukin 6 levels and inflammation. Okay, I'm not sure on which way the direction goes, but it doesn't matter. So the results showed that positive emotions were associated with lower interleukin 6. Okay, there it is. So researchers looked at a variety of positive emotions. They looked at awe, amusement, compassion, contentment, joy, love, and pride. And surprisingly, they found that awe, that sense of awe, had the strongest correlation to lower levels of interleukin 6 compared to any of the other emotions. In fact, only the degree of awe was able to significantly predict levels of interleukin 6. So participants in the studies they did who reported feeling the most awe, wonder, and amazement had the lowest levels of interleukin 6. Okay, and I've drawn just a little graph here, and I don't have the numbers. It's just to show the relationship between more awe.
We should go the
Yeah,
other
I know,
way.
I've got it backwards.
You got it
Yeah,
backwards. It
let me
should go
just-
the other way.
It's hard when you're doing this to think it through. Like that, okay? So more awe is lower interleukin 6 and lower inflammation. and there's a direct relationship between them. Okay, so the takeaway message from those sorts of studies is that it stresses the importance of fostering positive feelings, especially awe, in our lives to reduce inflammation and positively influence the immune system so that our immune system could better fight bacteria and viruses and things. Awe is often linked to feelings of social connectedness and social exploration. So this is their advice from the study. So form a practical perspective. The first step is to become more socially engaged. This goal is especially important if you are older or dealing with depression, because these situations often lead to social isolation. Here are some recommendations to become more socially engaged. It's got 4 of them here. Encourage positive relationships. Get connected online. Join a club or church. Volunteer. Okay, a few suggestions. The health benefits of increased socialization are significant. Many of these benefits may be related to fighting inflammation, and studies indicate that people who feel connected and have strong social relationships have lower levels of inflammatory markers in their blood. So then I would ask the question, what inspires you and causes you to feel awe? What research shows is that something as simple as listening to music, walking in nature, or being creative can have a positive impact on health. That's kind of information from this study and the article I found. I would say, what can bring a feeling of awe more than the realization that there's a God who is all-powerful, ever merciful, non-violent, infinitely loving, who only wants to make us happy, who created the entire universe, and who was willing to risk losing his son to save us. And you could probably list lots more. Okay, that should bring us awe. The more we think of how awesome God is, the more our inflammatory control, our immune system, that's what I want to say, the better our immune system will work. Okay. And then I came across another similar thing, and I don't have exactly what the health markers are, but they had some markers of health, and they compared 3 groups of people. Those who believe, I would say as we do, in a non-violent God, and their health marker was way up high. You know, whatever the markers they used for health, they had good health, indications of good health, because they believed in a non-violent God. And then there's atheists and those who believed in a violent God. And can anyone guess which of those 2 groups, atheists or believers in a violent God, which of those groups had the better health markers?
I think that's pretty obvious.
Which one? So which one, Mom?
Oh, sorry, I didn't get the whole statement that you made. Obviously, the people who have a high opinion of God and believe in him and worship him.
Yeah, they have the highest one, but among the other 2, and you can't see the graph, so I'm picking on you. Between the atheists and the violent God, people who believe in a violent God, which ones had the better health marker?
The first one.
Which one's the
Which
first
is
one?
what? Which, I forget what
The
it is.
atheists or the people that believe in the violent God?
Oh, those 2 you're comparing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, see, we could cheat and look at the graph.
But you can't, so I'm picking on you.
Exactly.
So between atheists and believers in a violent God, which group of those 2 had the better health markers?
I think probably the atheist.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. So that's interesting. Atheists are better off in a sense, in the sense of their concept of God, than those who believe in a violent God, and it shows in their health markers. So that's interesting, isn't it?
That is, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I've talked about awe, and we've come to the end of our study, but I just want to leave you with a little bit of awe. Come on.
Yes, I'm in awe at people who can put something like this together.
Oh,
That's,
Anyway, I'm just going to show a few pictures on the screen, and obviously, Lona, you can't see this, but it's just a beautiful picture of a lake and some mountains and everything. Does that, and Lona, you can think of them, and I know you've had some good pictures of fjords in Norway or wherever on your big screen there when you've
Oh,
been
and
there.
much more.
Yeah, that brings a feeling of awe, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Just
was
reading God's word brings a feeling of awe too.
Well, my point is that the things that God has made can bring us a feeling of awe. Absolutely. Now I've got a picture of mountains with a huge orange moon in the sky behind it. It's an awesome picture. Okay. Looks
it
fake.
looks fake to me. I've never seen the moon that big.
Oh well, if you get the telescopic telescopic lens on your camera, you can get effects like that. Yeah,
Really?
you're back a long ways from it. Yeah. Anyway, those are awesome. But the thing is that the God who made all these things. Now here's a picture of the Northern Lights and a guy on a sled being pulled by 4 reindeer.
It's not Santa.
That's not Santa. No. And there's kind of an awesome looking horse there. We think of the God who created these things, and we should think of his character especially. And as we do that and just dwell on how loving he is, that will actually improve our immune systems, okay, and make us more resistant to bacteria and viruses and things. So I'm just quickly going through a few pictures here. They're kind of awesome. There's one of a humpback whale that's got his nose up above, getting a breath of air, I guess, and a scuba diver holding out his hand to the fin of the whale. Huey?
Go back one more picture.
What's that?
Go back one more picture.
Go back one picture.
Go
Okay.
back.
Yeah. That one?
No, the one where there's a house in a cave.
Okay.
Yeah, it's back a couple.
That one.
One more.
No, that was
There's a house in a cave.
Oh, okay. Okay.
you didn't see it as fast as you did it.
Yeah. That's the one you want to see there. I think it's looking out of a cave into a sunlit area where there's a house. It's kind of a neat picture.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's pretty.
Looks like a temple.
Yeah, I guess when I click, you don't see it right away, but I'll just go through a few more here, a few seconds each. There's a lot of awesome things in nature, but it's all made by a very awesome God. So there's some northern lights.
Wow.
Yeah. Michael?
So Ray, Romans 1:20, right? For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen. We see these things,
Yeah.
being understood by the things that are made. And really, isn't that apart from faith, this is how we see him. It's the only way we really can. That's why the Bible says that they knew God, but they really didn't want to have anything to do with him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another good moon picture. I've just
It's an
got
awesome world.
Yeah, just got 2 or 3 more here. Yeah, sunsets can be really awe-inspiring. Okay, well, we'll leave it there. I hope you've been inspired a bit today and you'll think more of the condition of worth of our great God. And I hope you all have a blessed week. Any last comments or anything?
Right.
Let's just have a word of prayer.
It's good.
Okay. Father in heaven, we thank you and praise you. You are so awesome, and you've made so many wonderful things for us to look at and for us to eat and enjoy. Those are all kind of external things. Within our minds, we want to be continually acknowledging that you are an awesome God because of your wonderful character and all of the things that you have done, all of the things you've done in trying to reclaim us as faithful servants and followers of you. And we just pray that you would help us to be diligent in thinking of you and worshiping you and studying your word, that we may learn more about you. We just pray to be with each one of us through this coming week. And we thank you and praise you in Yeshua's name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, everyone. Nice to see you, Huey.
Nice to see you.
Yeah.
And Brother Ray, if you can forward a picture, you know.
Forward a picture to you?
Yeah, on my email, so I can pump up my immune system, please.
Oh, okay. I'll do that.
Hey, I'm signing off. Have a good week, everyone. Bye.
Okay,
Bye.
bye-bye.